Hello everybody, welcome back to What the Theory with your man Joel. We are back in our original digs, back where it all began, back where Alan was young and happy and we used to make time for each other. Now he doesn't have time to record me. What are you doing last week?
Not recording you.
What are you doing? Recording music videos, traveling, documentaries, just enjoying life.
No, getting different content.
And it's Kawa. It's Kawa.
Are you hurt?
I thought I was your only love, but it's okay. I thought we were in a partnership. I thought things were moving a certain way. But that just goes to show that in this world, no one is coming to save you, correct? You can only rely on yourself, correct?
Yep.
That's bullshit. Anyway, the beginning. Today's episode is about individualism. And yeah, it's going to be rather short. It's going to be part of a 3-part series in which I'm talking about man as a political animal. And the reason this came to me and why I was thinking about it is I went to church. Hey! Alan, are you surprised I went to church?
Everyone is at this
No,
point.
come on. I like going to church. I'm a very godly person. Anyway, I was invited to church. Where are you looking up? But we're going to put a camera here so that people see your face when you're doing these things. They think I'm insane.
You love to go to church to listen to what they say and judge them on the side and be like,
No, I also
he's
listen.
not called
No.
Yeshua, he's Yoshas.
Do you know the most annoying time in my life was when I was a free thinker? Like after I just left church and I went to the Free Thinking Association, it would have debates like, oh, you know, everything that begins to exist has a cause. Therefore, God is the original cause. And then they'd go, inconsequential. That means that God also has to have a cause. And we'd argue. I think I'm less embarrassed by that than the time I was speaking in tongues. Can you speak in tongues?
Yes.
Alan, can you first speak in tongues and I hear? Is it under your control?
No.
Alan, speak in tongues and I hear? Let's pray over this recording. Yeah, and we keep it. Just pray over this recording, then you pray, and then you give some tongues after.
May your will be done.
Okay. Amen.
Amen means that.
No, you need to You've got to say those things. You know, in my mind, I always have Donnie McClurkin's thing. Like something he says at the end of a certain song, Darlene Check. Anyway, you're taking me off my point. My point is about individualism. So I went to church. And I actually went to Worship Harvest, which I think is like a young, bustling church. It's got so many young people. And while I was there, I noticed about 3 things. One is just how joyful everyone is when they're welcoming you. You know, you're walking in, they have like people on the side. Oh, we're so happy to see you. Welcome to church. And it's very unnerving for me. Because why are you so excited that early in the morning on a Sunday? I'm much more comfortable going to like Anglican service where no one gives a damn. They're just coming. They've come to see God, not you. In fact, they'll be pushing you at the entrance and they'll sit and say, praise God afterwards. So one, it reminded me of like when you go to Cafe Javas and people come, hey, wow, my God, it's nice to see you. That thing. And I know someone is forcing them to do it and I know they don't want to do it. But I think here, guys, genuinely, that's like their genuine expression of hospitality, one of the gifts. Then the second thing I noticed is the sermon. They were talking about extending yourself and, you know, living your... they were talking about Abraham and how he was promised land of promise, and that's how he left and went and obtained what was his, because God's promise comes with plenty, it comes with abundance for you. Now, the thing that I noticed was they didn't talk about the generations. It was promised to Abraham and his generations. But they were talking about it with Abraham and they were putting us as Abraham. And in fact, the thing I took away from it was that, you know, all of us were in church and we're struggling and we need things to work out for us. And that if you come to God and you give to church and you listen to those commandments, that God will enlarge your properties. He will make you, you know, powerful beyond measure. You know that, I think that prayer of, is it Jabez? You're the one who goes to church. That thing of, Lord, may you expand my territories and all of, what is that prayer? What is it since you're Musumba?
I don't know.
Now check.
But
anyway.
I have something else to add to that. First, finish your point.
Okay. So then there was that piece. And then lastly, there's this weird thing in Pentecostal churches I'm now noticing, where when you're preaching, it's like a performance. There's a certain cadence. you're not hearing me, everybody. You're not hearing me. And then people go, woo! And then people walk around and shout. And it's like, it can only be received in excitement, which to me is like at a concert when they go, like it was very remarkably. It was remarkably similar.
Yeah.
And the person who took me, I'm not ungrateful for going. I really liked being in church and community. But unfortunately, every time I go there, I can't help but feel that I'm seeing the same things that I see at concerts, that I'm seeing in the real world. Like the very shape and culture of things, church doesn't seem to be against, they've come from. Church doesn't seem to be against the way things are. It seems to be a way for you, another method for you to get the things that are in the world. So practically everyone on the street is trying to work and build themselves up and get a business and all the rest. And then on Sunday you go for business garage. You go and then someone is going to teach you how to become a dominant boss or an entrepreneur. Or you pray and God is going to expand you, that God has a plan for you as an individual. And I have comments about that, but let me hear what you wanted to say.
No, mine was about the giving thing, like
Hey.
Abraham and stuff. There's a scripture, I don't remember what it is, but they say this guy doesn't have to give tithe because when his grandfather Abraham was giving tithe to Melchizedek,
It was in his loins.
Yeah. So I mean, Abraham gave tithe for all of us, so we don't need to give ever again. But don't tell that to pastor.
You're going to make my next meeting with my father very uncomfortable.
That's how I left my church. I started talking about those things, and they kicked me out.
Anyway, I was thinking about reflecting, and I wanted to do an episode on individualism. Now, this is going to take a bit of a long route, but I promise you it's going to add up. I was thinking about how when I used to hang out with my grandparents, they lived in a homestead, and they used to talk about things in a shared manner. They'd be like, we are going to do this, we have to do that, or this won't work for us. It's my dad who kind of taught me more around that no one is coming to save you. You need to make yourself efficient. You need to do twice as much as everybody. Even when you're driving, you have to assume everyone else is insane. And that's the natural logic I think we all move by. Even when we talk about dating, in the dating world, everyone's like, Kampala is the worst. And we say it when we live in Kampala, meaning aren't we the worst? But everyone's complaining about someone else being the worst. So who are these worst people? I don't know. And I thought I would take like a brief journey through, how did individualism come to be? Because it wasn't always the case. And I will talk about it from the Western point of view, not because I esteem Western philosophy as greater than anything else, but because when I look around at the way we live a very Western lifestyle. Like when they say, at work sometimes they'll be like, it's going to have Africa Day. Then what you do is wear exchange and then still send emails and go back to your nuclear family. And in no way are you living the life that those traditions came out of. You just have the aesthetic, put it over on top, or you have some Afro beats and now you're doing African stuff. You're not living the full values in which they're supposed to,
Not even
sort of.
not
even. Yeah. So I started by thinking about how Plato, that bitch, started out by telling us that to know yourself is the beginning of philosophy. And in some instance, I think it makes sense. The self has become such an important tool. It has become the gravity of everything. And from our conception of the self, we think that we exist in a society that requires us to be able to offer it things in order for us to get something. So I get into business, I offer some kind of service, and I buy my way into existence. Now, the problem with that logic is, one, it came out of England, out of guys like John Locke, who were talking about what is the justification for us as individuals resisting the monarchy. At a time when the kings that were, their reign over society was starting to become a bit shaky, you had a middle class that was developing of traders and merchants and the rest. And those guys were typically the middle class in Europe. There used to be the church and the aristocracy at the top. Then you had the nobles and land vassals. And then you had the merchants, the people who used to work in towns and stuff. Then you had serfs at the bottom. Now, this middle class was definitely in antagonism with the aristocrats because, if you're a king or you owned land or whatever the case may be, you were seen as paramount, that God had put you there. And merchants were more seen as like the people who had to get their hands dirty getting things done. Money lenders and the rest were always seen as deplorable people. But after the Black Death and all kinds of famine and catastrophe wipes out half the population in Europe, you then have those bonds broken. But the people who are surviving are the traders, the people who are dealing in commerce, people who have ships and the rest, and they start to get economic power. So economic power and social power at that point were separate. But economic power is now what is necessary for the king to be able to pay his soldiers, to be able to pay his lords. And so the aristocracy had to come into some kind of negotiation with the middle class, the bourgeoisie. Over time, the bourgeoisie were able to take over more and more, and their ideology took over. And their ideology is the entrepreneur is the biggest, most important person in society. Not kings, not lords, not knights, not anything like that. It's a person who can take money and make more money out of it. And funny enough, when we talk about capitalism, I'm not sure what people understand by that word. But when I say that, I don't mean free markets, I don't mean trade, I don't mean business. I'm speaking about a specific orientation in which when I do this, you can do things on the cover. So like it's M, huh? How will it be read when someone is watching? Will they read the word this way? Yeah, it's M, C, M prime. So M, C, M prime. So what does that? It's money that's turned into a commodity in order for you to get more money. So that money prime means you're getting more money out of this commodity than you had originally started. That's capital. It's a fluid motion. It's money or goods and services that are meant to create something which has an exchange value which is greater than the amounts that you put in. So the question had always been, where does that value come from? And in the 19th century, a lot of people thought that there was a labor theory of value. Right now, economists will tell you that's not true, but I still think the labor theory of value is quite strong, but we'll do an episode on that. The idea is that this laptop is useful. It's a capital good. But the reason it's useful is because human beings put their effort into it. There was intentionality, and it stores the work and ideas of thousands of people. And now I'm able to ride off of it. The reason this label is here as Apple is this masks all the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. You just see a label. Now, that ideology is the one that means that if we unlock the individual capabilities of everyone in society, everyone is able to contribute, harness their talents, and their labor is going to create value that all of us are going to enjoy from. That's the narrative. But the problem is the individual has to be in context. So looking at someone as a great person, for instance, myself, I was looking at my own journey. This is my own kalango, so you're allowed to abuse me as I do it. There's a version of me when I go to LinkedIn and I look at the narrative of I worked really hard. I started out in uni. I was an African kid that went to America. And when I was in America, I was working at a fast food joint and I was saving my money together. I was trying to live the American dream. Then I got fortunate. Okay, this guy is yawning, but you have to be asleep to believe the dream. So, and then I came back to Uganda and I was wise enough to get into digital financial services at a time when MTN was doing mobile money. And then from that, I was able to get myself into the right rooms and, discuss with them and share my ideas. And then I was given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and I made the most of it, and I made this happen. And I can be proud that I did it. And I can say that I own what I own because of my own effort, because of my own ingenuity. Now, that narrative allows me to feel like I am worth something, that I am on the marketplace, my labor can return the value of these goods and services. And it's very tempting for me to then equate my value to the things that I can bring in. The problem with that is when I'm not making any money, what does that mean about me? And I was thinking about how this ideology is so persistent in the way everything is running, especially now that I was seeing it in church. I was seeing in church that having riches is a sign of blessing, is a sign of what God has given you. And at no point did I hear, some kind of collective action towards us doing something for the people in the congregation. There was a point where there were people who were coming for prayers, whether they were sick or whether they needed a job or something of that nature. Then I thought of the most absurd sequence of events being that you come to a church with people who maybe own businesses. You tell them you don't have a job. They tell you that they love you because you're part of the brethren and we're all one family. Then they pray for you and drive off in their cars and leave God above to do something for you. As long as you've come to church and you've given something, you're going to be blessed. I think that's absurd. That's quite absurd. And I'm animated by it because I think I expected church to be the one place where there would be an exception. There would be anti-worldly wisdom. But what I'm seeing there is more worldly wisdom, but dressed up with religious language. The opening of different worship centers is the focus. So go and plant different churches in different places. Not build hospitals, not educate people, not maybe give people means of production, or maybe let's start something that can give everyone something to eat. It's no, you will succeed, but you remain an individual. You remain within the same logic of the way things are. It reminded me of this verse that where Christ is speaking about who can be his follower. And he's saying that you can be my follower if you can hate your mother and father, if you can leave the natural order of things. So I don't think he was literally saying it like, you must hate your mother and father because, the same person who was saying that you should honor them. I think what he was saying is that the hierarchies that exist within the world can be broken. And this is a new place. You've become a new creature, which means that we are now literally brothers and sisters. You're one body. But I think it's now just performative. You just do it on Sunday and during the rest of the week, you're acting like everything else. Now that's one thing, but now I'm seeing that the way we act in the world is starting to enter the way church is. And you can now go to church to learn about how to start a business in a spiritual manner. And you can now learn how to commoditize things. Instead of changing the way things are, we are taking on the spirit of the times. And that just frightened me to a very big degree. I don't know what you think.
The funny thing is when I have a friend of mine, we went to Bible school together.
Yeah.
To kind of run away from what people were teaching, to go and learn the Bible ourselves and figure things out. And so he realized, you're saying, the problem is people come to church, give. It became about give. So he started a church where there were no offerings.
Oh. Where is that church?
Which seems like something interesting, right? But guess what? As much as he told people not to give him anything, the more he kept receiving. People would just send him anonymously. And because people are used to that, they think that if they give,
there is some blessing.
There is that, it's like a give, take.
It's weird. For me, I always thought when you give, that's the blessing, that you are being God in that moment. But now it's like an investment logic, put here, and then it will come back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Do people still sing that song?
I never heard of it.
You don't know that song? That's how old I am.
I went to church. You went to a...
And that's true, I'm bougie.
Yeah, bougie church.
I'm a planned kid, but the plan was only 5 years. It wasn't like a 25-year. You see, I wish I was a fully planned kid where I had a trust fund. But now it's just approximate.
Forgive me, can't you forget? There's even a preaching in church of that. Okay, God blesses those who give.
Yeah.
And blesses his children. Then they also say that now, put God aside. And put Christianity aside. Think of the world as it is on its own. It has its principles, it has its words. And now that's what they teach right now. When you think the rich who don't believe in God are still rich.
Yeah.
So apart from believing in God and these things, we can do more.
Yeah.
You get? So
there are some worldly principles, they under the cover of be gentle as a dove but wise as a serpent. I think they are just serpents wearing feathers. But that's me. Anyway, the bigger point is, I think I saw reflected in that church service something that Foucault called the marketized self. The argument was that modern society shapes us into entrepreneurs of the self, where we're constantly managing our emotions, bodies, and careers, and spirituality to conform to societal expectations. The societal expectation is that you have to move up the ladder, that you can't be at the bottom. And in some way, poverty is now almost like a moral failing. It's not a systemic issue. It is yours. It is individual responsibility. Now, that cult of individual responsibility is taking something which is true but in isolation cannot be true. I think that's what Jordan Peterson is now. And I think people are confused when I abuse Jordan Peterson, because genuinely you will find a lot of self-help in the stuff that he's talking about. I'll never deny it. Like if you practice those things, clean your room, speak truthfully, take responsibility for your life, you will start to see good results. The problem is part of the chaos in your room and part of the issues that we're suffering from are not anything that you can do as an individual. It's not something that you can solve. And I think my generation is now starting to find, I was talking with some friends yesterday about how many people we know are either using some kind of substance or have some kind of coping mechanism which is just unhealthy. And we all need it, and for some reason we hide those things like they are failings of ours. Like if someone is on drugs, it is because they have a weak sense of self, or they have no willpower, or they have a moral failing. Or if someone is abusing alcohol or whatever the case may be, it is their fault. Never mind the fact that today I was watching NBA, and I noticed, have you noticed how many gambling ads are now coming on the NBA? Like, oh, you can bet the under. Will Anthony Edwards be the one to score the first 3 points? And that's being promoted, gambling, which is a serious issue, together with alcohol. And then afterwards, I think Charles Barkley said like the F word, and they were like, you can't say that, it's a family show. And I was just taken aback, like, it's a family show, but you're telling us about booze and gambling. Because it's business, as long as it makes money, it makes sense. And when I think about that issue, I suppose I just want to say to everyone that it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you were born in a fucked up system, or that you were born in a time and place where you have to be economically profitable in order for you to have value in this community. And I think it blinds us to the things that we see all around us. We start to see our own efforts as valiant, like the narrative I was giving, where there's a way I can look at myself as upwardly mobile and that I pushed myself all the way to the top. I forget the fact that I was educated by certain people, the fact that I look a certain way, the fact that I look very normal, the fact that I can speak in a certain manner, and it allows me to feel like, okay, the people who are of a certain class who own these assets, who are going to give me access to them, are not threatened by me. And somehow I possess that as my individual returns. I think unfortunately it's even gone all the way to therapy, because the first time I went for therapy, they were telling us that, you can't change the world, you can only change yourself. And have positive affirmations. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go for therapy. Please hear me correctly. All I'm saying is I'm suspicious that the current form of therapy is not addressing the systemic problems that we're facing. You will end up having to take drugs because in a pill, you can quickly get your emotions to a place that maybe more naturally you could get to. We don't have a sense of community. And when we say community, I think people think of it like singing Kumbaya. Man, I just mean like I live in a building. I think most of us live in complexes. I bet you don't know your neighbors really well. You do. Not you, Msumba. Now, we sort of think of it as when you're poor, that's when you have to resort to relying on your neighbors or to relying on the people around you. Forgetting that we actually rely on each other, it's just obfuscated by transactions. And when people complain about capitalism now, I think it's become almost a meme. Like you can just say it, but it doesn't hold anything. It's like an abstraction up in the air. But what I mean is that, like Marx said, the relationships between people, social relations, become economic transactions, and the way these things speak to each other become social relations. Because embedded in this is our system of production. It's the fact that there are some guys sitting in a mine in Congo with guns to them, pulling out these special little crystals and minerals that are going to go into this machine that is going to make me productive. I'm not involved in it, so therefore I don't feel responsible. It is individual responsibility. It's not collective. Like, what the hell do I have to do with people in Congo? And in a way, it kind of shields me from any kind of responsibility for my brother and sister. And why I started this thing with church is we're supposedly a Christian country. And I see the emancipatory potential in Christianity being that the instruction from God was, how can you say you love God without loving the person you see in front of you? And to me, love is not affection. It's not, sweet feelings. It's that, do I treat you or do I honor you? When I see your need, am I able to take out of what I have to make it right for you? But if I'm concentrated on my own needs and how empty I feel and how much stuff I need in order for me to, portray my vision of myself as a powerful individual, I therefore can't see you. In fact, I'll only see you in furtherance to where I'm going. You'll be a charitable case for me. I can give you, and then I feel, okay, I've done my duty. I haven't eliminated the problem and the structures that are causing it, but I feel good because I'm a good person. And I think the problem is now we are going to become doomers, and doomers in the sense that if you try and change anything, you realize that you can't do it yourself. Like every day, I wonder how you guys as parents feel, waking up super early to keep taking your kids to a school. You're all parents, like there are thousands of parents and there are only a few schools, but the schools are telling you how you should behave. Like at no point do we think we can come together and tell these guys, no, school shall start at 9 and it will end at this time. Like it's not even a conception. And yet when, in my life working in businesses don't act alone. They act in associations. They understand they have collective shared needs. They have interests that are going to be better served if they work together. But us as individuals, we've been splintered. We see each other as competition. The fact that most people that you work with, you don't know their salary. That's not by mistake. It's because we think of salary as a way of measuring how successful we've become, instead of understanding what the system has been able to get us to. And lastly, I think there is no choice between personal responsibility and collective duty. Collective duty shapes our personal responsibility. And I just feel like fight against individualism. And I think it's going to be quite difficult for us because the great thing about being an individual is you don't have to negotiate with anyone. Money and finances give you the choices to have power over people. And there is another form of power that we can have with each other, and that's the collective ability for me to be able to say to you, I have this need, you have that need, let's see how we can help each other out. It's painful, it's annoying. People are annoying, they are annoying. Some people are dumb, some people are clever, some people are aggressive, some people are not. But I think that's the point of why we live. We are thrust out of oblivion, given this brief moment in life, and the only thing that we know is it's scary and it's going to end. And the only other person I can see who has that same feeling of aloneness, of pain, of not asking for the characteristics they have, not asking for the abilities that they have, is the other human being across from me. Now I can misrecognize that and then think, if I am more powerful than you, somehow I have elevated myself. But like Hegel tells us, the master-slave dialectic is once you start to create slaves. And in the society, we've created slaves. There are slaves in the people that we don't talk about, the people who work and toil to give us food, to make sure that, the guys that we were praising as the essential workers. I saw how there was a thing with KCCA workers not being paid, the people who sweep the streets. And almost none of the people that I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis, as I brought it up, were even familiar with it or didn't even hear it. They just don't see themselves there. They would sooner see themselves where the speaker is than there. I think we are closer to the ruling class than we are at the bottom. That proximity is what is fooling us. The fact that we have nice salaries maybe and you can watch this show will give you the feeling that you're okay, but you're actually precarious. And that precarity shows up in the things that you have to numb down, the things that you have to quieten. And I think the more we talk about it, the better we're going to be. But even more than talking, this is me encouraging you to form some kind of community. Find some cause that you can do beyond yourself. Most guys will tell you self-care, will tell you to retreat and to relax and to don't dream of labor and to go on nice holidays. I think there's a part for that, but there's something more important in terms of you are blessed with a lot. You don't see the people who have less than you because you're always being shown the people who have more than you. You see luxury and keep looking there, but you're failing to see what you're doing down here. When I was a scout, I remember they were teaching us when you're sailing, you have one person looking at the horizon and another person looking at the ship. Because if you keep your eyes on the horizon, you're not seeing what you're effectively doing. You're seeing the wonder of where you're headed, and you're not seeing the actuality of what you're doing. The illusions that we follow are not in our heads. they're in our actions. And all I'm saying is let's look at our actions a bit more. And if we're not happy about it, there's a collective way we can do something. And what I aim to do with this channel and aim to do with the work that I'm doing here is more or less just maybe say look down every now and then. Look at the things you're doing with your hands. Look at when you go to church. Is that really what you want? And just being quiet and letting it go by and say, for me and my personal relationship, I'll be okay. I really think there's no more dangerous idea than having a personal relationship with a deity. And a deity who, when he came, said that the church is my body, that the gifts I'm giving are for all of you to work in unison. You can't, you can't shine a light and then put it under a cover. You can't keep salt in a salt shaker. And that's more or less what we're doing. We are using it to enrich ourselves because that's the logic of the world that we are living in. I'm under no illusions that things are going to change immediately, but I don't think things have to change immediately. We can be that first pebble that starts the avalanche. Yeah, that's my thought. Alan, anything from you?
It's like it was a good thing you started with the church. Because I feel like the church is the only system out there that is supposed to do away with individualism.
Yeah.
Because everything else strives through individualism. Like you brought up schools, the reason why, Logan Roy said if you give the slaves a uniform, you realize how many they are. So if in school, the reason why schools work, especially for the schools, is because even us as parents were pitted against each other. Like my child is the smartest. She's the first in the class. She has the best uniform. She's the head girl.
I have to get extra coaching so that she can stand out.
Yeah, she goes early. Like in my compound, I have like 2 other parents who go to the same school.
Yeah.
But never have we thought to be like, well, let's use one car to take all these kids.
Right?
No, it's like, no, me, I drive my kids to school, or mine went early, I came back, you haven't left the house. You're an unserious parent. It's like, so that's it. Like parents will never come together and tell the school, like, unless it's like one teacher said the word gay. There's a rainbow in the school.
This evil must be expunged.
And like, because church is supposed to do that. Because the reason why I'm in the church that I'm in right now is because everyone in the church is the product of the goodwill of the church. The church, this church literally took everyone to school. Picked random kids, like what Toto did. Random kids, took them to school, has given them jobs. You went to university, you learned accounts, you're the accountant of the church. You went to university, you did this. So like everyone is a product. Yeah. So even if I go to a Sunday and like, let me say the word is not fulfilling to me because I know a lot of it, I stand and support because I know like how everyone is going to benefit out of this whole thing at the end of the day. So if church doesn't do that or runs away from that, then individualism is just going to increase.
Yeah, I think the last thing I want to say here is that to avoid moral judgments, because, in a sense, I think moral judgments end up with us personalizing the people in those positions, not knowing that they are compelled to do that. Like the parents in your living arrangement are compelled to act that way because if they don't, someone else is going to act that way, and someone else is going to have the top kid, someone else is going to invest and get the returns. So there is a kind of weird logic there where we go, if I don't do it, someone else will do it. But eventually, if you don't go against the grain, what are we going to be left with? Now, remember before they were telling everyone to learn how to code. Learning how to code now, it's like learning how to write. Like if everyone knows how to code, so, and even now, I was trying to tell someone that I'm thinking of going to do my, to finish a PhD in philosophy for me. And they said, why would you go to school if you're not going to make money out of it? Like that was the logic. And I guess I'm trying to push against it, but I don't blame anyone for following it because what are we but creatures of habit and creatures that are followed by our environments. Anyway, that's been the episode. I hope there were enough jokes. Now I'm going to talk to a very serious man. Serious man has showed up here. We're going to discuss political things, so watch for the next episode. When I'm wearing this shirt, it's because it's the same day. It's not that I don't have clothes. All right, bye.